Happy day all. This is Mahesh Kumar working as an assistant professor in the Department of Computer Science and Engineering at B.V. Raju Institute of Technology, Narsapur campus. I am dealing with the course Python programming. In this session, we will be discussing about initialization method and what is the use of self-argument in a function. In the previous session, we have discussed how to define the classes, how to create objects, and using object, how you can access the data members and data functions of a class. So today we will be talking about initialization method. What is this initialization method? Why we use this initialization method? So whenever we use Python programming, when we define a class, every class contains initialization method. The main purpose of using this initialization method is to initialize the members of the class. If you see the name of this particular method, it is being prefixed and suffixed by double underscores. So in Python programming, we have a lot of methods which are prefixed and suffixed with double underscores. And we call all these methods which consist of, which is prefixed and suffixed with underscores are called magic methods or dunder methods. So whenever you want to use this initialization method inside a class, we have to understand the syntax of this particular method. So when you define this particular method inside the class, we have to follow the syntax def keyword followed by the name of the method, and this method has arguments called self, and after self you can have any number of arguments. Whatever the arguments you require to the function, that many number of arguments you can pass into this parameter list. So this is the syntax that you need to follow to define initialization method inside the class. In this particular function block, you have to do initialization. That particular initialization statements have to be written inside this function block. So as I said that initialization method is used to initialize the class objects. This method is very similar to a concept called constructor in a programming language called C++ and Java. So there we call them as a constructor. So initialization method in Python programming is very similar to constructor in Java programming and C++ programming. So we use this function to initialize the members of a class. Now we will talk about what is the purpose of self-argument inside the function parameter list. So in the previous session, I said that I will be explaining this particular self-argument, purpose of using self-argument in a function parameter list. So that we will be talking here. So when we define any function inside the class in Python programming, the first parameter in the parameter list of a function should be a self-argument. So why we need to use this particular self-argument? So always self-refer to the current object of a particular class. So whenever you use this self-argument, we should not set or pass any value for this particular argument. So when you make a call to a function inside a class, there will be a self parameter argument. For that argument, you no need to pass any value for that, or you should not set any value for that. So this self argument will always refers to what is the purpose of this particular self argument is. By making use of this self argument, we represent the instance of the class. So self argument will always is used to represent the instance of a class. Self will always points to the instance of the class that you are working with. So now we will try to use this initialization method and write a code how to make use of this method inside a class. So we'll see one example of this by implementing the code. So how we have to make use of init method is define a class. So we'll define a class called as demo. Right? In this particular class, not demo, we will take a class name as employee. So we'll define a class called employee. Now what I require in my program is I need to know the employee name and I need to know the employee number. So for that, I will make use of a init method. I'll make use of a init method, right? And the first parameter or argument should be self. Once you recall the syntax of init method, the first argument is self. After that, how many number of arguments you require for this particular init method, that many number of arguments you have to define in this particular parameter list. So I require employee name, and then I require employee number. So I will pass two parameters, employee name and employee number. So we have to make these available for objects. That is, we have to initialize the values for this. So the value employee name, I will be assigning it to self.ename. So when I initialize this value, the parameter that we pass is initialized to this variable called ename by making use of self argument. So when you write this particular statement, what does it means is you are initializing the member of the class. So it will become an instance variable. So this will become an instance variable. The same thing you should be doing with the second argument. So I'll write self.enumber. The value that should be initialized here is enumber. So if you see this particular construct now, what we did with init method is we have initialized values for the class members. So these are the instance variable we say in the program. Now after doing this initialization, I will be defining one more method in this particular class. So it will show employee details. I want to show the details of the employees. So I will define a function called show, where I don't want to pass any arguments to this function, right? So just I need to print the data of employee. So it should be employee name. It should be employee name. And I want to display employee number. So these are the two values I want to show to the user. So this is a print statement I will be writing. Then I will display under this. Now when you see the output, this will be the names of the columns. Under this we will be displaying the values of this. So I will make use of another print statement. So here, now I have to display the name of the employee and employee numbers. So the value of this variable and the value of this variable have to be accessed inside this particular method. So making use of self parameter, I will be accessing the value of this variable, class variable, self.ename, right, comma, self.enumber. So that is what I want to do in the class, right? So after defining this particular class, now I will be coming out of this particular class. Now I want to access the show method from this particular class. So if I want to access this method, we know that we require object for the class. So what I will do, I will create object for the class employee. Emp is the name of the object. For which class I am going to create object for this class employee. And when I create object for employee class, you have to understand that in this particular class, we have a initialization method. This initialization method is a parameterized method. So whenever I create object for this particular class, how many number of arguments are required for the initialization method? That many number of arguments you have to pass here. Why? Because whenever you create object for the class, right, when this statement is executed, whatever the initialization method we have inside the class, that will be invoked. That will be invoked first. So that is the reason we have to pass two parameters. The name of the employee, I will write name of the employee as Scott, right? And I want to pass employee number as 7854. So these are the two parameters that we need to pass to the initialization method. So after creating object for the class, by making use of this object, call the method what we defined in the class. So what is the name of that method? Show. So we didn't define this method with parameters. That is the reason we have just called the function with the object, right? So after calling this object, now once run this code, so you can see employee name and employee number is been displayed. In a print statement, what I do, I will make use of /t. So when I use this, the data will be properly fixed in the output. So you can see under this ename, we have got the ename. Under this column, we have got this number. So now what is the use of this initialization method, these initialization variables is that now we have created one object for this particular class. Now suppose if I want to create other object, emp1, right? And if I create object emp1, now this is the first record of employee. This is the first employee record. Now if I want second employee record, the name of the employee will be different. The number of the employee will be different, right? So whenever you want to create multiple number of records, right, each record data will be different. So in order to do this, we have used this particular initialization methods. So now for the second record, I will write employee name as Blake and the number is 1964. Now call the show method. So you can see the second employee details as an output. So this is how we can make use of initialization variables, and we can do initialization inside the class with init method. So I hope you have understood the concept. So we'll be talking about other topics in the next sessions. Thank you.
Like, share and subscribe. Hit the bell icon for more updates.